A very warm wishes to each and everyone watching this video. My name is Harivasan and today I'm going to speak on the topic the Banking Regulations Act of 1949. So, banks have been playing an important role in the Indian population since the very development of this country. Earlier, banks were guided under the Indian Companies Act later, but the need of of a separate act was understood and then a new legislation was passed giving banks a new status under the Banking Companies Act of 1949. After that, through an amendment, it was translated into the Banking Regulations Act of 1949, and now it is not only applicable to the banking companies but even the scope has been enlarged to the corporate banks as well. The main point of such an enactment was to protect the interests of the people who are willing to deposit and as well as acting as a depositor. Earlier, the powers vested in the banks were used in an unnecessarily unobligatory manner and hampered the economic society at large. But after that, such enactment, the the main use of such powers were controlled and guided by the act so as to maintain the level of economy in general. So, the main purpose of this act coming into force was surrounded with numerous silent features such as first generally being that the RBI was given the head power of all the banks by making it the supreme authority for the appointment or removal of any heads of the bank so as to maintain a smooth flow of system. Banks that were facing problem or were not able to cope up with or were not able to meet the desirable level and were labeled as the weaker banks were provided or are provided with the compulsory amalgamation with the senior banks or with those banks that are at a higher level so as to strengthen the banking system in India. Third, the banks are not able to cope with the level of other banks, and the amalgamation is only possible then. The best way to ensure smooth flow is by providing quick and easy liquidation of such banks. The act also restricted the management of banks by having one of its directors as chairman on its board of directors and along at least 51% people who are members of the board should have knowledge or experience of finance or banking. After that, the Regulatory Act also highlighted the area of non-banking asset. So, the non-banking asset which ensure that no bank can have any immovable property beyond 7 years from the date of acquisition. The next salient feature that I want to highlight is that the prohibition is also laid on trading as the banks at any cost are not directed to buy, sell, or exchange goods in the form of barter so as to make a profit directly or indirectly. India, as a developing country where the economy plays a vital role in its advancement, is mostly governed and controlled by the monetary and the banking policies and regulations. The operation of the Indian banks have been covered with a partly regulated environment clubbed with certain provisions such as the directed investment and directed credited so as to be the face of the economy by eradication of poverty as well as the creating employment. The main area of reform must be in improving the profitability of the banking operations or the companies and also along with it exaggerating and enhancing the operational flexibility and autonomy of the decision making process related to the banking companies or the banking system in India so as to augment the net operating income of the bank. The corners such as the direct investment, direct credit, and the investment rate structure with the framework of the prudent norms and regulations must be understood and should be improved. There should be a free entry with suitable calls of the new bank so as to improve the banking system in the country and also to establish a very well economic zone in the world, because the competition of the banks and the banking structure in the world has been augmenting and increasing at a very high rate. Also, the foreign banks should be allowed to enter the competitive market with the Indian banks, so that the country could easily operate in the global market of the banking competition. So when comparing the Banking Regulations Act of 1949 to the earlier act, it is clearly seen that the Banking Regulations Act is trying to make new provisions, new amendments, new norms, so that the banking structure can hold a tight grip on the Indian economy, as well as can expand its roots to the foreign market, so as to increase the economic structure of India, and also to increase the GDP of this particular nation. And even the FDI, the foreign direct investment controlling the banking system, would eventually and followed that would be increased. So, okay, I would like to end here. Thanks a lot for listening.